to begin with my kids. I just came in the bed, in our bed, and I turned over, and he's just cold. He's just cold. Who's cold? My husband.
Welcome to Criminally Obsessed. I'm Ann Emerson. And the case I cannot stop obsessing over, Kouri Richins, the Utah mom of 3 who is accused of poisoning her husband. Now, prosecutors say his Moscow Mule, which is a cocktail, had 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in it.
The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life.
And here's the twist. Before she was ever arrested, she wrote a children's book about grief for her sons. Now she's on trial for killing their father. I'm talking to my friend, Joseph Scott Morgan. He's the host of Body Bags podcast, and he's also a forensic professor at Jacksonville State University in Alabama. He's going to help us break down the science. So let's get into it. Thank you so much for being with us.
You bet, Ann. Great to join you, and great to join your fans out there as well.
Well, thank you. And I want everybody to be sure to like and subscribe and follow to Criminally Obsessed, because we get to talk to experts like Joseph Scott Morgan, who can really break down some of these cases and take us behind the scenes of what's going on, because you've worked on these kind of cases that we're going to hear about today.
Yeah. That's the way I spent my life, working for the coroner in New Orleans and the medical examiner in Atlanta, and now I've been teaching. So, yeah, let's have at it. And this is a fascinating case, Ann.
It really is. It had me at go, but I think the idea that she was actually writing a book to try and make her children feel better about grief, or at least that's what she said she was doing. I think that got our attention, and then she gets arrested for murder.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And, I've worked cases of poisonings, and I've certainly covered them in the media and on my podcast. They fit into a particular grouping of folks, right? If you go back in time, you look at, the infamous Tylenol poisonings.
That's right.
That was kind of a randomized thing where, you can hit anybody and randomly. You don't know who it's going to be. But most of these kind of events where you have something that's going on within the familial circle, it is different than specific trauma. When we talk about gunshot wounds and bludgeonings and stabbings and all these kind of impassioned things, poisoners are a different lot. They're intimate. They have to have close proximity. And the most important thing is that they have to have a methodology for delivery. And I always say they have to have nerves of steel, because it's one thing to poison somebody and walk away from it, but to remain in their space and watch them go through this decline. Yeah. Sometimes it's quick, and other times it's a slow progression depending upon how they're being dosed.
Well, there's a report that just came out. ABC News obtained an intelligence report from the Department of Homeland Security, and they talked about how these intimate domestic violence poisonings were actually on the rise, or they were reporting that they could be increasing. A couple of different things about that is what you're saying is that this is extremely sort of intimate way to take care of somebody, right? To murder somebody. As far as partner poisonings, how many have you done? Like how many cases like this? Is it unusual?
Well, I've had a couple over my career as a medical legal death investigator, and they were nothing. Most of the time, they were some kind of really horrific thing. I've had a couple of drain cleaner cases, which is absolutely horrific. But I've covered in the media, it seems like there's more and more of these, and you can almost marry it up with the increased use of fentanyl. It seems like fentanyl is kind of like the fallback drug of choice here, because it's so readily available.
Yeah.
And it has such a level of lethality to it. And people think that they're going to fly beneath the radar. But, here's the problem. When you have somebody that's young and robust, and they should not be found dead in bed. That's not the norm. So for us as investigators, automatically, we've got alarm bells going off in our brain. because this is not as advertised. We're not thinking that he's got some kind of heart defect or, he's got some kind of longstanding terminal illness or something like that. He hasn't been treated for this. This is something in an acute phase. And then you have to kind of suss it out and try to understand, well, how'd this get in his system? How was it delivered to him?
Yeah.
And that's going to take you down some very curious roads, which obviously the investigators have been going down now for some time in this particular case.
Well, and also it's harder to track, right? Because it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't taste like anything, unlike a drain cleaner that I can only imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, that has almost an erosive effect within the system.
Takes your throat, like your esophagus.
Yeah, and you'll have people throwing up and acting violently. I have had cases where people will crush up drugs, a cocktail of drugs. Many times those things, you can taste them. But with fentanyl,
I thought that's what fentanyl would be. That's not, you don't crush that up. That could be.
No, it all depends on how it's applied, how they get their hands on it. And it can come in a couple of different forms. In this particular case, when a body comes in to the medical examiner's office, we do what's called a standard tox panel. And it used to didn't include fentanyl. Okay. It wasn't on the menu, if you will. Nowadays it is. So, you have to be, this is not like it's something exotic, like some kind of, venom from a snake or something like that we wouldn't normally screen for.
Right.
So, and you begin to look at the age of the person, you think, why would they just suddenly die?
Yeah, and this was a very healthy man. So Kouri and Eric Richins have been married for several years. He ran a really successful business, right? And she was flipping houses, and when on the surface, this is one of those things, like they're living in a beautiful part of Utah, in Summit County. And on the surface, this is one of those cases that kind of takes your breath away because they're so young. I mean, Kouri's only 35 years old now, right? So, I mean, this is just, it's extraordinary how this all kind of came to be. But what happened in the case so far is we're hearing the opening statements. We're starting to hear how the theme is going to go for the prosecutors, how they're going to set up that Kouri would poison this husband and father of her 3 boys, and that, she needed money. She wanted money. She wanted his money. She thought she could get it this way. They're going to say that she was having an affair and had been having it for a while and wanted to carry it on, and that she wanted a fresh start in her life. And this is the only way she saw out, is how the prosecutors are sort of setting this up. They've got to prove that she took fentanyl and poisoned him by giving him a cocktail with laced with fentanyl. But that not only that she did that, but that this was like her 3rd attempt at trying to kill him.
Yeah. And that's the curious thing about it. It's almost like in the beginning, she's kind of testing the ground, perhaps, to try to understand the level of lethality and to kind of framework it for a lot of people. If you think about fentanyl, many people don't understand how insidious this drug is. Did you know that you could take like a dose that's about the size of 3 grains of salt, and it's going to kill you dead as a hammer?
Really?
And and it all depends on how it's applied, right? This is, and particularly, and this is not, it's not necessarily pharmaceutical grade fentanyl as well. This is being cooked somewhere, perhaps. And that's one of the really interesting things about this. Is that it's not like she ran with a group, I don't think, at least, a group of people that are dealing in fentanyl. So you think about access, you think about receipt of it. How does she even begin to formulate this in her brain? Who do you go to access this substance in order to use it and weaponize it against her husband? I think that's something that the prosecution is going to have to really hammer hard on. The connectivity. I think that, we think about this domestic help that was indwelling or that helped out around the house. Is that the point of contact? And from whence did it come? Because if they allow it and they begin to put her into the company of people that are dealing in fentanyl, then that paints a pretty dark picture that's going to be hard for the defense to overcome. Okay.
Well, and I agree. And so that you're talking about Carmen, the housekeeper, and Carmen, the housekeeper is this character that has come, that they've talked about in preliminary hearings. They've already kind of outed her as the person that they're going to say was the one that gave, that when I say they, prosecutors in the state have been trying to set up that Carmen was the middleman that got drugs for Kouri. What we do know, and this is something I'm going to bring up right now, because the defense has kind of set up this counter argument that he was already using drugs, that he was already using illicit drugs that might have been laced in fentanyl, like gummies, like marijuana gummies or something, so that he was already using something that could have had it. So all of a sudden, I mean, we're just starting off in this trial and we're already in this world of what, where these drugs came from.
I would urge anybody that really digs forensics, okay, to watch this case very, very carefully. And this is why. I haven't examined the witness list, so I don't have any knowledge of this, but let me just put this forward. It's going to be fine and good that the state forensic pathologist will come up on the stand and will say their part, right?
Right.
That's not who you need to be watching. You need to watch the forensic toxicologist in this case. This is a perfect storm where you could have battling toxicologists that get onto the stand. And so the defense can have somebody that can render their own opinion about the level of drugs in this man's system. And the state can have their own expert up there. And you think about what level were the drugs at, when you ran the screen. Is there evidence that this is something that results from chronic abuse? Does he have a history of it? What other of these abusing substances did he have in his system? Because if that's what they're putting forward, they don't necessarily have to prove it, right? All they have to do is plant that seed into the brains of those that are on the jury panel. But that's going to be quite fascinating, kind of a thread to pull on through this entire thing.
Well, and what I'm hearing too is that they have set it up that he had 5 times the amount that would be a lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. Mm-hmm. So, if that's the case, what does that look like?
Well, that's going to be, first off, the fact that they would put forward the idea that he's got 5 times the lethal amount. That what that goes to is that it doesn't have like this long protracted half-life. So that sounds like an acute poisoning, perhaps, like something that he was hammered with in the short term. There are certain draws that we do in the body. Okay, so we do blood, we do urine, we do bile from the liver, from the gallbladder, but we also do vitreous fluid. And vitreous fluid is very nonspecific. It's harder to kind of quantify. That means put a number on it, but it will qualify. And I always tell my students at Jack State, it's like we draw vitreous fluid because it's got kind of a histrionics to it. It holds on to things. It doesn't metabolize as well. So you look into the vitreous fluid, it's almost like, I'll give you a good example. It's almost like cutting a tree down and looking at the rings of a tree, and you can kind of see where there was a drought, where there was a dry time, when there was a wet time, that sort of thing. I know it's a very broad description, but it's more broad, that spectrum with vitreous. I'll be very interested to see if they get in, in the very granular areas about that. And you're also going to get into this idea of the metabolic clock ticking, because the toxicologists will get up there and they'll talk about how long it takes for this drug to metabolize in the system. And so the state toxicologists will get up there and they'll talk about, well, this is what a lethal level is, because we all know that fentanyl does have pharmaceutical background, right? It's got a pharmaceutical use. Right. So you talk about things as it applies to toxicology. You talk about things that they're within the range of what they will say therapeutic levels. Okay. Once you start to get above that, then you get into the lethality and how long after the ingestion or the application of the drug can you expect the patient to live or the victim to live?
Okay. So basically you've got to determine what that lethal dose of fentanyl really looks like, right?
Yeah.
And how do you draw that conclusion where, like you said, you've got to draw it from different parts of the body, right? To see.
Well, yeah, there'll be various samples that will be drawn. I think blood is probably going to be the most robust. Generally, it's aortic blood, comes directly from the heart, and it will give you an immediate level. Urine is also a good candidate here. If you can get urine on somebody, we draw it as well. That gives you a snapshot of where we are in kind of the metabolic status, in the timeline, if you will.
Sure.
And here's the thing. Academics can talk about this all day long. The key is, you well know, Ann, because you've been at this for so very long, you're so good at what you do. How is that technical jargon going to translate to John Q. Citizen in the jury box? It's kind of like talking about DNA, right? Can they craft this picture to the narrative and say, okay, this is the bottom line. This is what you're looking at. And fentanyl we have a reputation with fentanyl. It's regarded as so nasty and so insidious. And we've got a lot of samples to draw from out there. We've got a lot of examples to draw from out there. This is not anything new under the sun, is what I'm saying.
Well, and I think what also for the state that I would think is a challenge is because as soon as the defense starts talking about other drugs that he may have in the house, and they actually showed a picture during the opening statements of different drugs that were around the house that they found all over the house, just gummies, marijuana gummies is what they said it was, that sort of thing. We all know that there is a problem on the street right now with fentanyl getting into drugs that are not that are, so that's going to be a hill to climb, I would think.
Yeah, it will be, because a lot of the stuff, we're seeing a lot of these cases where, and it only takes a small amount as well as we've previously stated. But yeah, you'll find traces of fentanyl in coke. You'll find it in weed. It's out there. You'll even find it in heroin, which is kind of interesting, because fentanyl is an opiate. Meth, it'll be there because, and I think I hate to say it this way, but it's kind of a marketing ploy on the part of the people that are selling it. They think that if someone gets a better high off of it, you're going to have a return customer. And unfortunately, because you're not talking about people that are working for pharmaceutical companies, you don't know how to really dial that in. You have a lot of these cases that wind up with a fatal outcome.
Well, and okay, so we have this really interesting situation too, from a total, forensic perspective. I would think that we hadn't heard, or I hadn't heard, what was going on with Eric as the paramedics got there. And I felt like I got a clear vision of sort of what was going on in the immediate aftermath. Now, what we understand about this case, just to get viewers up to speed as well, with what we understand that happened when Eric Richins passed away, he had come home that night and they were, quote unquote, possibly celebrating that they were going to try and close on this mansion that they were going to flip. Let's have a celebratory shot, I think was a text that came out that Eric sent to Kouri. And so they have this cocktail that could have been a Moscow Mule with, hard alcohol in it and maybe a celebratory shot on the side. We don't really know where the fentanyl went. But my question is, what does it taste like at that point? Would he have known there was something? No, it's odorless and tasteless. I don't. Yeah, in every account that I've heard relative to fentanyl overdose, you don't know that it's there. That's the really dark specter about this. That, and it would be mask rather. And you think about, for those that have never had a Moscow Mule, it has a very distinctive taste to it. And if you drink, it's a very pleasurable drink. It's icy cold. It's generally served in one of these kind of copper mug kind of things. Which I think they had.
Yeah. And I think it's garnished with like mint or something. So the more you mask it up like that, the first thing you're going to know, I think, that things are going sideways for you is your motor skills are going to slow down precipitously, because it is a depressant. just like any other kind of opiate. And you're going to have somebody that's going to go, generally the way it kind of plays out is you'll have someone that will go into like respiratory distress. The lungs begin to get heavy. You'll see in the cases that I've worked, particularly with heroin ODs, they'll become what's referred to as cyanotic. Generally, you'll have people that are from the nipple line up. They'll begin to kind of turn like a purplish hue.
Purpley blue. And the
the lips.
Yeah.
You can see it all through the head, the ears, the nose, the eyes, even highly congested. And you'll see them struggling breathing. That's why a lot of them, they will develop what's referred to as a frothy edematous cone. And it's kind of this, it looks like the head of a beer almost.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's kind of pink tinged sometimes. You get it in drowning as well. But again, that's an impact on the lungs, right?
Oh.
And so the person, it's almost like I'm not going to say dry drowning, but it's almost like the same effect. They're struggling to breathe, like a fish out of water.
Well, and to that point, when the paramedics, because, this is information, and I think there's a lot of evidence in this case, just by the way, for viewers to be listening to. There's so much evidence in this case that we have not heard all of the details. There's a lot that we have not heard. But one of them that I was hearing about was the CPR that they did when they got there. I guess Kouri Richins said she didn't know how to do CPR. When the paramedics got there, they started CPR. That's how they knew they were just now starting CPR. And there was that foam that you're talking about that they saw, sort of a reddish tinged foam coming out of Eric's mouth.
You'll hear the forensic pathologist talk about this in the case. The other thing, and watch this very carefully, y'all. And I don't want to go too over the top, be too graphic, but I have to say this. When they begin to talk about the lungs in this case, and they will, when the lungs are essentially examined at autopsy, they will be heavy, okay? They're going to be heavier than normal. For a grown man, left lung has 2 lobes, right lung has 3. So left lung standard is going to be about maybe 320. And you might have the right lung that could range from like 380 to maybe 410. I would imagine those lung weights will be up more than likely. And then when you're going through your dissection, palpation of the lungs itself, you'll see that kind of frothy edematous exudate, if you will present as you're doing the dissection. You can actually press on the lungs. You'll see that. Then they're going to get into the microscopic study. They'll go into the histology, which is the other thing. There's a reason why we do what we do in the morgue. When we dissect the organs, we take little samples and we place them on microscopic slides, and you can see things with the eye, which is kind of cool, right? And you can see these little focal areas of congestion in there. And they'll put up comparative slides sometimes and say, this is a person that has died of heroin overdose. In this case, this is, compare and contrast, right? So you'll see that as well. So forensics is going to play a big deal. I think probably toxicology is going to play the biggest deal here, looking at this. And of course, the sourcing of the substance.
Well, I have to say, I did work on a case a few years ago of a young woman who died of a fentanyl overdose. She didn't know she was taking it, and she took it, and it was a tragic case where she was filming herself on social media, and so you actually saw a little bit of the decline before she got into really bad respiratory issues. I think one thing that's bothering me about this right now is that we were hearing, and I know there's going to be 2 sides to this coin, but we were hearing that Eric, after he had taken whatever he had taken, the shot or whatever, we're assuming that he was found in bed, and he was laying in bed, going to sleep. And when Kouri reached over, he was dead. Now, did she move him and get him back up to the bed? Did something happen like that? Is that something that the prosecution's going to try and say that's not how she found Eric? It's because there's so much. If it's 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl, doesn't it start reacting with the body pretty quickly? Would he just climb into bed and just be like, oh, I'm just going to go to sleep now?
Pretty quickly. What would be interesting is to know where the bedroom is. Did he have to egress upstairs, to do this? And you're talking about a real sonic punch here. If you're talking about 5 times,
that's right, yeah,
lethal level, and it could start off with him slurring speech, and again he becomes manageable right at that point in time. And I mean that in the sense that, let's just say somebody had plied him, oh, honey, here, you don't feel good? Come on, let me take you to bed.
Okay.
And then you get him to bed, and maybe it's a Herculean effort. She wraps his arm around her shoulder and, ferries him off to bed and lays him down. Oh, gee whiz, I woke up and he's cold. He's not responsive. And it just kind of, the narrative is just kind of silky smooth there, right? You think about that. And I'm sure the defense can counter that more than likely. But again, it's really hard to get past this idea that if you're talking about 5 times the level, that's like a super dose that he would have had to have taken, and it would have had to have been, it's in an acute sense. You're not talking about something that has metabolized really quickly. Right. So I think that the prosecution has it tough, but I think the defense has it tough as well here.
Yeah, for sure. Now, as far as fentanyl goes, are they able to trace like batches of fentanyl? Would there be anything that they would be able to look at, or is in a case like this, it's just cut and dry? Like, are you talking about how it's manufactured? Yeah.
Yeah. And would it have a specific chemical signature? Yeah, I think that they could. Here's the thing, if they could find a sample of it, okay, which I don't know that they necessarily could in the Richins household, but if they could find a sample of it, I think that probably after it had been in his system, I think that it would be difficult to kind of get that chemical signature. Maybe, I don't know. That would be for a toxicologist to answer. But if you actually have the raw substance, yeah. And, bright bulbs at places like the DEA that deal in illicit drug trafficking all the time, those that are manufacturing, fentanyl, it has a very specific chemical signature. And so you begin to think about this and where it's sourced from, right? And I think that's probably what we're getting at here. And again, that's where, the domestic help comes into play, right? What does she know? When does she know it? And who are these people? And that's kind of a scary revelation for her. It puts her in a position where, I don't know, they're going to ask, where did you get this from? And she's going to have to be asked and answer that under oath on stand. Can they compel her to say what the source and the origin of this is? And then are they going to reach out to that person?
Well, what I've heard is that they've got the housekeeper who was acting as a medium, then this guy who she supposedly had gotten it from, how the story has changed. That's something that they're really going to be hitting hard with from the defense's standpoint, is because what we understand is that at first the housekeeper was saying it's Oxycontin that she got, then it changed to fentanyl. And now we're hearing that the person she bought the drugs from is gone back to, I never gave them fentanyl. It was always an Oxycontin issue. So that is something that they're also grappling with, because their star witness, who they were going to be able to say, the housekeeper got the drugs from this person and this person gave them fentanyl, is now saying, no, I didn't do that. This is Oxycontin. Not that they couldn't have cut the oxy with fentanyl, is what I would say.
Well, they could, but traditionally, particularly when you're talking about oxys, you're thinking, oh, okay, well, this is some kind of pharmaceutical grade that's been accessed somewhere else. At the end of the day, if the drug chemist at the state crime lab is saying that it's fentanyl, you kind of take it to the bank, it's fentanyl, and so I think that might all be a wash if you try to go down that road, at least from a toxicology standpoint. And so I think that, there's going to be some splaining to do, as they say.
Yeah, for sure. Now, there's also 2 other attempts, right? So was this, like you said, are you looking at this like she was, the prosecution's trying to set up that somehow she just didn't get enough of what she was looking for? And my question here is because what he was having looked like a histamine reaction to some degree, or an allergic reaction that he, on Valentine's Day, she had gotten a sandwich that he quite liked. I'm just running with the prosecutor's narrative right now. And that this sandwich somehow made him extremely ill, that he thought he broke out in hives. He was having an allergic reaction. He took drank Benadryl. He took an EpiPen from his son. We've heard all of this from the prosecutor.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Does this make sense to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, because some people do, in fact, present with an allergic response to opioids, and so that could happen. And again, if this is something that had been manufactured, which I'm assuming that it had been, the fentanyl, Lord only knows what's in this thing, or what's in the basic molecular makeup of this and how they're going to act. Like you were talking about what things are cut with, or what they're, what are the binders that are used at a chemical level in order to hold this stuff together. It can be just about anything, and you don't know how any one person is going to react or respond to it. It's almost like in the military, if they're firing artillery rounds and they're trying to walk something in, to make it lethal. First one might not be, second one might not be. So we know what to adjust to at that point in time. And it sounds like in the fatal ending of all this, whoever applied this to him, really, this was a real gut punch, because it was so much, because it's in such an extreme level to this point. It's like, it didn't work before. By God, it's going to work this time, because this is how much I'm putting in.
Yeah. And of course, the defense has got an argument for everything, like you said, but we're so early into what could be a 5-week trial right now.
Yep. I'd be interested to know what the defense thinks as far as what was the delivery method here, and what the status, the physical status of the drugs were, and how she got them in. And did she dissolve it to the point where it was just completely undetectable?
Yeah. And how long does that take to do? And I mean, all of those questions. I think all of the evidence surrounding this case, and we're not talking about that because we get to talk to you today. So we're not really hitting all the other things that prosecution is going to show, which are, I mean, for the viewers, like, if you haven't been following this case, follow this case. Like, there are the orange notebook, the walk the dog letter. I mean, I'm giving y'all like little hints of what we're going to be seeing. She was a prolific writer, the defendant, and was writing down a lot of very interesting information that is now gotten into the prosecutor's hands. So I think it is it's a hard road to climb. I mean, we can't underestimate the state on this case, I don't think.
No, I don't. It is a hard road to climb, but wow, it's going to be a ride. I can tell you that. I think everybody ought to stay tuned into this case, because for me personally, as a forensics guy, gunshot wounds are one thing. I cover a lot of those, talk about them, those sorts of things, bludgeoning deaths and all that. But there's just something about poisonings that it's the idea, the profile of the poisoner, because they're so different than any other person out there that commits a lethal crime like this. They're stealthy, they're intimate. I think that most of the time they have nerves of steel. They keep things hidden very, very well. They have multiple faces that they can put on, because they have to maintain access to the target. And in this case, we're talking about an intimate partner.
Well, I've got to ask, like, if you are someone who might have been just someone who thinks that they might have been poisoned, what do you do in a situation like that? Do you go to the hospital? Do you take the drink with you? Do you? Well,
yeah, you would retain it. And that's going to be another interesting thing here too, going back to this. The vessel which this was allegedly delivered in, the Moscow Mule, if it's one of those kind of glasses, and I can, or cups, I can see it in my mind right now. I don't know about you, and I can envision it right now with like sweat dripping off the outside of it. What was the status of that? So yeah, if someone out there believes that they've been poisoned in some way, don't stick it in the dishwasher. But more importantly, call 911. That's the best thing you can do in an acute situation like this. And it doesn't matter if you think that they're going to laugh at you or say, that you shouldn't have called us. That's beside the point. If you think you've been poisoned, call 911, and you have to rule it out, and you have to get somebody there that can render care immediately, because time is ticking by, and this is kind of a silent killer that's running through someone's system like this. So you need to hop on it as soon as you can. You think about cops that roll up, they have Narcan spray, and they can administer those agents in order to revive an individual. But more importantly, you need to get to a clinic or to an emergency room where they can treat you in an acute sense to get the stuff neutralized in your system and then get you back on the road to good health.
Well, and I mean, I think about it and it really makes me so sad because according to all that's coming out right now in the evidence, prosecutors say that Eric Richins, after the Valentine's Day sandwich that he had taken, he had actually told friends that he thought that he was being poisoned.
Yep.
And I think back to that was just a week or so before he actually died.
You're going to dig into this and you'll begin to understand kind of the relationship dynamic here. I think that's going to feed into this. Talk about, you were talking about the idea that she wanted a fresh start. This was about money. That was the motivation of it, that sort of thing. And you'll really get a peek inside the family dynamic with this. Those poor babies, right?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
It's absolutely so very tragic.
One thing that we did learn was that, and we've learned, is that he was worried enough that he took his money and his properties and he put it into a trust, and he made sure that his sister was the executor. And we heard from her. That was heartbreaking testimony. You could see how close she was to a brother that she thought would be alive for a long, long time.
I just had an overwhelming feeling. I had just barely talked to my brother. He was fantastic. When I talked to him just a couple hours before, I had an overwhelming feeling I should tell someone about this, so I did.
Because you thought Kouri was behind it?
I did not say that.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think his dad testified too as well.
He did.
And that's powerful stuff. There's that old adage, that children should never pass away before their parents. And that's, as a death investigator, I've borne witness to that so many times in my career. It makes it all the more tragic. What's been kind of left in the wake, regardless of the outcome at the end of the day, when the jury makes a decision about the case, you still got all these wrecked lives here. And I don't know. I hope that there's going to be some kind of satisfactory resolution in this case. But nothing you do is going to bring back this man. He's gone.
They've been living in hell for 4 years. I mean, this has been going on. We have to remember this is, this whole poisoning happened back in 2022. So this family's just been living, and she didn't even get, she wasn't even arrested for a year. She wrote a book. She wrote a children's book in the meantime. Well, I can't tell you, thank you so much for talking to us about this.
No, of course. Anytime. I love hanging out with you. You guys are always so generous, and I love being on the show. So thank you for having me. Well,
it was so interesting. And as we get into these, I want to, the he said, or the he said, she said, or the she said, I want to see what these toxicologists have to say in this case.
Please do. I'd love to join you again, and we can knock this around. I think it'd be quite enjoyable. Yes.
Thank you so much. We always love having Joseph Scott Morgan on Criminally Obsessed. And I don't know about y'all, but hearing the science is fascinating to me, even if sometimes it can be pretty gross. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about this case. If you have any questions, and be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
folks can have a seat as you come in. Thank you. All right, please have a seat. Good morning. Thank you for your patience. We'll begin this morning with cross-examination of Ms. Gibson. Ms. Gibson, you are still under oath.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Ms. Nestor, please proceed.
May it please the court. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Gibson, you and I have met before, but just for purposes of the jury, again, my name is Kathy Nestor, and I do represent Kouri Richins along with my co-counsel. So I wanted to start by just kind of revisiting what we discussed yesterday about your role in this case.
Okay.
So it's my understanding that you are, for purposes of saying it an easy, non-lawyerly way, you're the evidence lady, right?
Yes.
So all the evidence that's in this case kind of comes under your purview, right?
Yes, it does.
And you're responsible for being told when it's located, right?
Correct?
If possible, photographing it where it's found.
Yes.
If not possible, then making a log of where you're told it was found.
Correct?
Keeping those logs, safe and secure, right? Noting on the logs the day it was found, the location it was found, and by whom it was found.
Yes.
Making sure then that it's packaged in a way that it can't be tampered with later.
Yes.
And then storing the evidence in some way that is protected from the public or from tampering.
Yes.
And by the way, where do you store all of your evidence?
In our evidence room in the sheriff's office.
Here, just right across from this courthouse?
Correct.
Right. And that room is locked?
Yes.
And only certain people have access to that room?
Correct.
And whenever anybody goes in or out of that room, they have to sign in, right?
It's a key card access, yes.
Okay. And then ultimately your goal is throughout the investigation, if someone needs to look at something, they got to go through you and you check it out and let them look at it and then check it back in.
Yes.
Right. And then you also over to the jury. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Now, there is an exception for some types of evidence. For example, we've heard testimony in this trial about blood and bodily fluids and samples of tissue. You don't maintain those, correct?
Correct.
Pardon me?
Correct. Just to clarify, we do have a few items from the medical examiner's office that are stored in evidence.
But not fluid of
No.
nature, right?
No.
Because most of that is maintained by the medical examiner's office, right?
Correct.
Or the labs where those items were shipped.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other type of evidence that someone other than you has a hold of in this case?
Not that I know of.
All right. So one of the pieces of evidence that you were responsible for gathering in this case included the 911 call. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
And tell us what you did to obtain that call.
I believe I was booked into evidence on a USB.
On a little thumb drive?
Yeah.
Okay. And have you ever reviewed the USB and made sure that the call was in fact on it?
Yes.
And you verified that that was a true and accurate copy of the call?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, at this point, we would move to admit State's Exhibit 2-40, which is the 911 call in this case.
Is this, forgive me, just so I have context, this is the same as the one we've already heard?
I did a little snippet of it in my opening, but it has not come in yet.
Mr. Bloodworth?
Your Honor, it's Ms.
Oh, my apologies, Ms. Sherman.
That's all right, Your Honor. My objection is based on hearsay. Certainly there are portions of that call that may be admissible by the defense, but broad swaths of that, the state would object on the basis of hearsay.
Would you folks approach?
Sure.
Any other questions about foundation related to Ms. Gibson's receipt or preservation of the 911?
Do you recall who you received the 911 call from?
I don't recall off the top of my head, no.
Do you know whether you downloaded it yourself off of a county database?
I wouldn't have access to that. That would only be one of the supervisors in dispatch.
So one of the dispatch people gave you the thumb drive?
I don't know how it got from dispatch to me. It was booked into a locker, I believe.
And what is that?
On our evidence locker, so when it's booked into the sheriff's office, if a deputy books it in, it typically goes into the temporary locker where they drop the key and then we collect it.
Is that what happened in this case? A deputy dropped it off?
I believe so.
How do you typically, in other cases, gather the 911 called for evidence purposes?
It's either that way. Sometimes I will personally request it if the detective asks me to. But either way, it's just taken from the dispatch center and booked into evidence.
So once that thumb drive got into your evidence room, it was maintained safe the way that we just talked about with all your other evidence, right?
I believe so, yes.
So there's no reason to believe that the 911 call that you have would have been tampered with in any way?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's it, Your Honor, unless the court thinks I need more.
Please keep it.
Okay. We're going to come back to the 911 call later in the trial. Okay? Court's indulgence for just a minute.
Of course.
As another part of your duties, and I want to use our language really carefully here, so if you could match my language, that would be helpful, okay?
Okay.
Were there calls between Ms. Richins and her family that you obtained recordings of?
Can you clarify?
On about a weekly basis there for a while, were you downloading calls between Kouri Richins and her family?
Are you talking about jail calls?
Your Honor, move to strike and need to approach.
At a time, there are legal issues that come up that I need to discuss with the attorneys at sidebar. This will happen throughout the course of the trial. There's no particular significance to any one of them. Second, please do not consider or speculate at any time during this case or during your deliberations about whether the defendant was or is in custody or was in custody at any time. That is not evidence of anything. You cannot consider that issue for any reason. Ms. Nister, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right. There was a time where you downloaded home wave calls. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And those calls, when you would download them, you preserved those calls in the same way that you did all the other evidence, right?
Correct.
So it was kept in the evidence locker. No one could tamper with it or alter it.
Correct.
And some of those calls, there were transcripts made. Were you involved in the making of the transcripts of those calls?
No, I was not.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I'd like to go through with you kind of a timeline, I guess is the best word for it,
Okay.
of your activities on this case. And I'm not going to retread what Ms. Shervanak already covered with you. I'm going to try to talk about things that she didn't cover so we don't exhaust the jury, okay?
Okay.
So I want to talk first about the night of Mr. Richins' death, when you arrived on the scene. When you arrived on the scene, you did mention there were already people present, is that right?
Correct.
When you were there, were they still conducting CPR, or had they ceased their efforts to try to revive Mr. Richins?
They were not working on him, no.
Okay. So at that point, you knew this was going to be a death scene, right?
Correct.
Okay. And was there somebody on the scene that was giving you tasks to complete, or were you just using your best judgment on what you needed to do while you were there?
I was there to assist Detective Woody.
So Detective Woody was the individual that kind of told you what she needed from you at the scene.
Correct.
And when you first arrived, what was it that she said she needed your assistance with?
I don't recall her exact words, but to assist in documenting the bedroom.
Okay. And you did that, right?
Correct.
Okay. And one of the pictures that you took was admitted yesterday. Just a minute. For purposes of the family, this is going to be a photograph of Mr. Richins' body under the sheet in case they'd like to step out. Can we pull up Exhibit 1-7 that was admitted yesterday and publish it, please?
Anybody do it first?
I don't, oh yeah.
Any objection, Ms. Shervanek?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll publish that now. One moment. There you go.
Okay. And this is a picture that you testified yesterday that you took. Is that right? That morning?
Correct.
All right. Above the head of Mr. Richins, under the bed, there is a crumpled up sheet. Do you see that?
Yes.
And if you look directly above it to the mattress, this is one of those beds, I'm guessing it's one of those adjustable beds that's divided in the middle.
Yes.
But you can see that there is a sheet on the mattress that's the furthest to the bottom of the picture. And there's not a sheet on the mattress closest to the window. Is that right?
Correct.
And do you have an understanding of why there was no sheet on that mattress?
Yes.
What is your understanding of that?
My understanding was dispatch had instructed Kouri Richins to do CPR on Eric Richins and was then instructed to try to get him on a flatter surface for CPR. In order to do that, especially with a male, they're typically larger in weight, and so she instructed her to pull off the sheet in order to get him off the bed.
So in other words, you can't lift the body because it's literally dead weight, right?
Yes.
And so the idea is to undo the sheet from the bed and then pull him down to the ground where you could do CPR on a flat surface.
Correct.
And is that because, I mean, I don't even know if you know, is it not successful to do CPR if you're on a cushy surface because you go up and down, right?
Yeah, it's typically a little bit harder on the person.
Okay. All right. And is it your understanding that the sheet that's crumpled up under the mattress that has no sheet on it, that's the sheet that he was pulled to the ground on?
I believe so.
All right. And did you examine that sheet before it was put into evidence?
I don't recall how much I examined it, but I looked at it.
Do you still have that sheet in evidence?
Yes, we do.
Right. And is there any blood on that sheet?
I believe there was on this.
So if there was testimony here by EMTs that blood did not start coming out until after the EMTs were there, is it fair to assume that the sheet was under Mr. Richins when the EMTs were working on him?
Can you rephrase, like, the sheet
Well, let me ask
him?
this way. Why did you feel that that was an important piece of evidence to gather and keep?
Because it was where he died on.
Perfect. That's what I needed.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. You can take that down, Katie. Thank you. You also, I believe, said that you photographed other areas of the bedroom, right?
Yes.
And one of the photographs that you took, I believe, was the photograph of the nightstand, which was Exhibit 1-9. Can we please publish that to the jury? Exhibit 1-9. It was admitted yesterday, Your Honor. Oh, thank you. I gotta get a screen on this thing. Okay, and that's the picture that you took as well, right?
Correct.
Now, when you took that picture, there's a wallet on the nightstand.
Yes.
Do you know how that wallet got there?
I believe it was placed there. I don't recall who placed it. It was there when I arrived, but I was told that it was retrieved from the kitchen.
So, is it fair to say then that anything under that wallet that might have been residue on the nightstand could have been altered or changed by placing the wallet on the stand that night?
Not by just placing a wallet on top of an object.
Did you ever pick up the wallet and photograph what was underneath it?
Yes, we did.
You did pick up, and where's that photograph?
I believe OME Sessions documented that.
Okay. And did you open the drawers and photograph what was in the drawers of the nightstand?
I don't believe so, no.
Were you aware at that point that a hydrocodone bottle had been removed from one of the drawers?
I didn't know where it had come from, and it was taken with the decedent.
Okay. So you did not take the hydrocodone bottle into your custody?
No.
Did you open it and photograph the inside of it?
I believe that was OME Sessions.
Okay. So you can't testify whether there were pills in it or not at
No.
the time?
No, I cannot.
Did you ever recover that pill bottle back?
No, we did not.
Okay. I thought that was one of the pill bottles you introduced yesterday. Not?
No.
That was a different hydrocodone bottle?
Which hydrocodone bottle are you referring to?
So yesterday you introduced a packet, and you remember we came up and you were trying to untape the bottle and looked in one of them, but there was another pill bottle with that one. Where were those taken from?
Fits in that same packaging from the master bedroom, the master bathroom, like linen closet area.
Okay, so the hydrocodone bottle you introduced yesterday was found in the bathroom.
I'm going to object. That misstates the evidence.
Would you lay some more foundation, Ms. Nestor?
How do you know where it was found?
I was there that day, and it was found in the bathroom.
Okay.
And
So-
when you say it, for my benefit.
I need clarification.
Yeah,
It's not
could
clear
we,
what-
I need
Okay.
I'm having pronoun trouble here.
Let's
Can you
do
be
this.
specific about which item you're referring to?
Let's make it really easy. Let's pull your package out, because you
Okay.
still got them with you,
Yes,
right?
I do.
You got your box. Okay. Let's pull out package number. Just a moment. shall find it.
Is it 9-1?
I'm looking. Yes. Okay, may I approach, Your Honor, just for a minute? I forgot I don't have that. Let's see that once. May I approach?
Yeah, of course.
No, this one. Can you take it out? Sorry, make you blow up.
Okay. So that was my bad. I got the bottles mixed up. So the bottle you just looked at was something called monocycline or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And that was a prescription for Ms. Richins.
Correct.
Okay. So those were found in the bathroom.
Yes.
And that includes the quetiapine?
Quetiapine.
Quetiapine?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and those were found in the bathroom.
Correct.
And where was the quetiapine bottle found?
It was in one of the baskets that was in that linen closet in the master bathroom.
Okay. So what happened to the hydrocodone bottle that was sent with the body of the decedent?
It's under the medical examiner's office protocol to keep that until they're done.
So you don't have that bottle?
I do not know.
So all we have is a picture of that bottle?
Correct.
So it has never been taken for testing by you to anyone?
Correct.
So if there was fentanyl residue in that empty pill bottle from 2016, we won't know it because you never took it to be tested, right?
I was never given the bottle, no.
Okay. While you were there that day, you also did not take any photos of the kitchen, is that right?
Correct.
And you did not take any photos of the kitchen sink?
Correct.
Or what was in it?
Correct.
And you did not take into your custody any items that were in the kitchen sink, is that right?
Correct.
And you also did not take any pictures of the closet?
Correct.
And later, we've had pictures be introduced. When you did your Matterport walkthrough, we saw an image of a green jacket where the gummies were kind of sticking out of a pocket. That green jacket, you can't say whether that was there the day that you were there or not.
I cannot. And just to clarify, I did take, I think, 2 photos of the closet, just not that side of the closet.
Okay. So you took photos of, and I'm using this from my experience, but in my house there's a woman's side of the closet, which is much bigger, and a very small man's side of the closet. Is that the way it was set up in Ms. Richins' house?
I don't recall.
Okay. And you also did not go inside the cabinet over the toilet when you were taking pictures of the bathroom and open the cabinet and see if there were gummies in there, did you?
I did not.
Okay. Also, there was a picture that has come in your Matterport where there was a little dot above the refrigerator where you said that some gummies in a clear plastic bag were found, right?
Correct.
And you didn't go above the kitchen and open that cabinet and take any pictures that morning?
No, I did not. You're referring to the morning of the death?
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you for helping me be specific. I'll try to keep my dates straight. So, since you were personally the one who knows where every single thing was found, isn't it true that all the gummies, with the exception of the gummies that were found in the jacket in the closet, were all stored high up where children would not be able to reach them?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. Just 1 second. I think we're going to move to another day. Oh, you mentioned when you were describing paraphernalia that you did not see any paraphernalia that day. Is that right?
The day of the death?
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going to get better.
You're fine.
The day
You're
of the
good.
death.
Correct.
And you mentioned paraphernalia is things that we might be familiar with, which would be like bongs or vape pens or scales or little baggies you would put drugs in or something like that, right?
Correct.
Things that would store drugs.
Correct.
Is it possible that if someone had, in your experience, when you've been to scenes, have you experienced where people put pills in different bottles than what the bottle actually says they are when they're illicit drugs?
Are you talking about like prescription bottles?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So if you saw an empty prescription bottle near the body that had expired 6 years before, could that possibly be paraphernalia? If it was used to store illicit drugs?
If it was used to store illicit drugs, it could be considered.
Okay, thank you. You also, that day of the death, you did not go upstairs at all, correct?
Correct.
You also did not go downstairs.
Correct.
Since then, you've walked through, viewed, videoed, measured this whole entire house. You're aware now that there's a kitchen downstairs, right?
Correct.
And are you also aware that there was liquor stored downstairs?
I was not.
Did you notice in all these tours that you did and videos that there was an actual beer fridge downstairs filled with beer?
On the day of the Matterport, or which day we were?
Any day you were there.
I don't recall.
Did you notice there was liquor bottles in the cabinet in the kitchen downstairs?
I believe there were some. I'm not sure about how many, though.
Did you ever photograph any of those?
If I did, it would have been in my overall photographs.
Also, the day of the death when you were taking photographs, did you photograph anything in the kitchen trash?
No, I didn't photograph the kitchen.
All right. Did you notice anything set around the kitchen? For example, cut up limes or drink mixes or anything on the counter? Did you notice any of that?
I didn't enter the kitchen.
You never even went in it?
No.
Thank you for clarifying that. Then I won't waste my time with more questions about the kitchen. Okay. So let's move now to the next time that you were in that house, which my understanding would have been April the 13th of 2022. Is that right?
Correct.
And what was the reason you were there?
We were there to serve a search warrant.
And this is going to seem like a silly question, but I need to make the record. So when you all execute a warrant of a home, do you tell the people in advance, hey, FYI, we're going to be at your house at 9 and we're going to be searching everything you own? Do you do that?
I don't.
No.
No.
As a matter of fact, it's important for searches to be done well and done professionally, that the person not know they're coming, right?
Correct.
And you guys actually take pretty extreme steps to make sure the person's not tipped off that you're about to search their entire house, right?
Correct, but just to clarify, I am not law enforcement officer. I'm not sworn, so that's up to the detectives.
I appreciate you making that distinction. Okay. I will not suggest otherwise. But you are certainly a critical part of the search process, right?
Correct.
And why is that?
I'm there to document everything and photograph, collect anything of importance.
So really, I mean, you're like the hub of the whole search, right? Like everything's coming to you that they find in that house.
Correct.
All right. So I know you're not a sworn officer, maybe you don't carry a gun, but you sure are important to the search process, right?
Correct.
Okay. So knowing that and knowing your role, you would never tip someone off that you were coming to search through all their personal belongings, would you?
No.
And is there any reason that you all believed that Ms. Richins knew in advance you guys were coming to her house?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Well, let's find out if she has any knowledge,
Right.
and then we'll know whether or not it's speculation.
I would just ask like a more precise question. I think, and I'm not picking on Ms. Nestor, but I think it was you all, and I think we just need a little more.
Can we just limit the
Detail.
question to
Yes.
Ms. Gibson?
It's a Southern thing.
Yeah.
Y'all is just in my
Okay.
I'm
my
not
blood.
picking on her. I just wanted to be clear.
I'll try not to say y'all.
Would you restate the question and limit it to this witness?
I am happy to.
Thank you.
I will try to keep y'all out of my vocab, but it's hard. It's deep in there. Did you have any reason to know that Ms. Richins either suspected there was a search coming or knew there was a search coming?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So what steps did you, not y'all, what step did you take to prepare to go to that house that morning on the 13th?
I just made sure I had enough equipment to bring to the home, whether it be packaging, tape, property seizure forms, stuff like that.
Was there a debriefing prior where all the officers and you talked about how you were going to approach the home, how you were going to approach Ms. Richins, what the plan was once you got there?
I believe there was a briefing beforehand, yes.
Did you attend that briefing?
I don't recall, but I believe I was in there for part of it.
Okay. And how many officers were planning on being at that search, to your recollection?
I couldn't put a number on it. I'm not sure.
Rough estimate of how many people were in that debrief?
I'd say at least 5.
Okay. And when you all got to the scene, did you drive your own vehicle?
No, I drove a evidence van.
And how many police cars do you remember being at the scene that morning or throughout that day?
I don't recall. I'd say at least a couple.
When you arrived on the scene, was Ms. Richins in the home?
I don't believe so, no.
Did she at some point return to the home, or were you not even involved in that process?
I don't believe I was involved in that process.
So you never even saw her that day?
I don't believe so.
At any point were you asked to go check on the items that were in her vehicle when she was stopped that day?
No.
So you don't know what was in her truck the day that she was pulled over?
No.
And no one ever asked you to, like, say, hey, these items were in the truck where she was removed from during our search?
I don't believe it. So, and just to clarify, you're referring to the April 13th?
Yes, all these questions are the 13th until I switch, okay? So no one asked you to inventory any of the items in her personal vehicle?
No.
Did the search warrant cover the vehicles in the house?
I believe there were 2 vehicles inside the garages that were included. I'm unaware. I wasn't part of that part of the search during her stop, so I'm unaware.
Okay. Do you remember the weather that day?
It was winter. It was cold.
It was really cold, right?
Yeah.
Snow on the ground. Remember when we used to have snow in Park City?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. How long were you at the house that day? The 13th?
Believe we were there for about a half day. We were there for several hours.
Was there also a member there at the home on that day from the U.S. Postal Service that you can recall?
Yes.
What's his name?
Believe it's Smoot.
Right. Agent Smoot. Why was Agent Smoot there? What was your understanding of his role at the search?
My understanding was pursuant to the search warrant, they were looking for anything that could have been mailed to the house that would have contained drugs or paraphernalia.
Right. And Mr. Smoot works for the Postal Service, so he would be looking for things that were mailed, right?
Correct.
Like illegal drugs?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did he ever give you any that day to check into evidence, anything that was an illegal drug or a postage that looked like it was connected to illegal drugs?
Not that I recall.
All right. Was it your understanding? You okay?
I just need some napkins. Sorry.
Oh.
Ms. Nestor, I have a scheduling conflict at 9:30. Is this an appropriate place to pause?
Sure it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is no fault of the attorneys. I have an unavoidable scheduling conflict from 9:30 to 10:30. We didn't want to lose all of that time this morning. We have gotten as much done as we could. We're going to take a recess. Fair reminder, please don't talk about this case or anything related to it. You are free to talk about everything else. Current events, your family's sports, whether the Spurs are actually going to make it to the finals. That's all fair game. But please, no talking about this case. You are allowed to use your personal devices during this recess, but do not use them to post about the case or to do any research, and please avoid any social media or other reports about the case during that time. Thank you for your patience. I promise we'll get back on the record as soon as we can. Please rise for the jury. Folks, have a seat, please. Ms. Gibson, during this break, like overnight, you are proverbially still on the stand. Please isolate yourself. Don't confer with anyone. Okay. The court is in recess until 10:30. Thank you for your time. rest of the day. We will have you come back tomorrow morning, ready to go at 8:30 a.m. Between now and then, same instructions. Please do not speak about this case with anyone. Please do not allow anyone to speak about the case to you. Please do not read, listen to, or watch any reports about this case from any source. You just have to affirmatively avoid those things. Please don't do any searches on the internet about this case at all. Thank you for your patience. Please travel safe. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Please rise for the jury. Folks, have a seat. Ms. Gibson, may I have a brief conversation with you? You don't need the bin. You can leave that there for a moment if you want. Mr. Palmer will watch over it for you. You can just step to the podium for a moment. I apologize for this delay. Can you be here ready to go at 8:30 tomorrow morning?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand that you are still, in effect, under oath and on the stand, so you cannot confer with anybody about your testimony?
Yes.
All right. Can you follow that instruction?
Yes.
Very good. I'll see you tomorrow morning, ready to go at 8:30.
Okay.
You'll be taking that bin with you, correct?
Yes.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bloodworth, anything else on the record today?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Nestor?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. The court is in recess. Thank you for your patience.